What's up, everyone? I'm Sophia Pasternak, an award-winning author and mental health professional, and this channel is all about the intersection where writing meets psychology. I also post stuff about my author journey, baking bread, and outdoorsy stuff. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you're notified when I post a new video. So today I am talking about the emotional deprivation schema as part of my character therapy series. Yay! As a reminder real quick, character therapy is based on real psychology, but please don't try to use this on real people. I've taken out a lot of the kind of nitty-gritty and simplified it down for use with fictional characters. So this is only for use with imaginary people, not with real people. Let's get into it. Emotional deprivation can be summed up as no one loves me or understands me. The belief that your loved ones won't love you, nurture you, protect you, or understand you. There are three types of deprivation: nurturance, empathy, and protection. So characters with the emotional deprivation schema can be kind of bitter about the perception that nobody in their life loves them and nobody in their life wants to give them the empathy or the understanding or the protection from the rough things in the world. And they feel alone, emotionally alone. And even if they have loved ones in their lives who are physically there, they just don't have anybody who's there for them emotionally. This belief that their loved ones are not going to give them this emotional support makes it really, really hard for them to ask for it. So they desperately want a hug from you, but they're not going to ask you for it because they believe that they don't deserve it or that that's just not what their loved ones do. On the flip side, they can be super clingy and kind of try and pull that love out of you. Even if you're giving it, they want more. And it will eventually drive their loved ones away. So this schema can start in childhood if you have distant or emotionally cold parents. If you have parents that don't really express their love at you, then that's how you're going to grow up believing that the world is. In my character therapy overview video, which if you haven't watched it, check that out, I talked about the three responses to having schemas triggered. And a schema trigger is anything, a thought, an event that happens, something that somebody else does or says that causes a little voice in your head to speak up. And in this case, say something like, they don't love you, or they don't really care, or you're in this on your own, and stuff like that. So when your schema is triggered, one of three things might happen. And depending on your temperament, depending on your mood that day, whether you've had a Snickers bar, it will be something different. And you can fluctuate. You don't have to always be one of these things. You can kind of fluctuate between them depending on how kind of a day you're having. So the first way to respond to a schema trigger is by being an overcompensator. And the overcompensators act as though the opposite of the schema is true. In this case, the schema is, my loved ones aren't going to love me. The opposite of that is my loved ones love me so much, and so they will demand unreasonable shows of emotional support from their loved ones. This can be so exhausting for their loved ones because you feel like nothing that you do is making them happy, but it's just because the second that you kind of pull away, that's reinforcing that schema, and they're living their life as though the opposite of it is true. You're ruining their day, and they will react very negatively. The second way to react to a schema triggering is by being an avoider. And the avoiders avoid. When the schema is triggered, it stirs up emotions, and so they do whatever they can to remove those triggers from their lives. They act like the schema doesn't even exist. And this means not having loved ones. So they will completely avoid any intimate relationships, and they will just isolate themselves from other people. Because if no other people are around, then they can't trigger the schema by withholding love, affection, and protection from you. Now, the third way to respond to a schema trigger is by being a surrenderer. And this is assuming that the schema is absolutely true and you're destined to just not get love or support or emotional anything from anybody. And they will on purpose choose loved ones who are cold and distant, because they think that's what they deserve. And these are the people who have a really hard time asking for support and asking for protection and asking for love. Because they believe that they don't, that's just not how it works, and that they don't get that. And so they're unhappy with it, but they don't ask for a change because it's kind of like they don't know what they don't know. They don't realize that, oh no, my loved one is supposed to support me and hug me and protect me from meanie moos and stuff like that. Alrighty, so the lie, the want, the truth, the wound. And the lie is the schema. It's the lie that your character is telling themselves about the world or themselves or other people. And this lie is, I'm not special to anyone. Nobody really loves me or understands me. I can't depend on anyone for love or emotional support. Those are the lies, a sampling of the lies that people with this schema have. The want is usually a tangible object or person, and it's what the character thinks that they need in order to be happy. And the want assumes that the lie is true. So for this particular schema, the lie would be something like, so the lie is, I'm not special to anyone. The want would be, I want to stop having my feelings hurt because I'm not special to anyone. Whereas that's not healthy, and that just assumes that, like, yeah, you're not special to anyone. So we actually want to get to the truth. And the truth is the thing normally intangible that your character comes to realize that is, in opposition to that lie. So if the lie is, I'm not special to anyone, the truth would be, I don't need to be special to anyone. I'm special to myself. Or I am special to someone and it's this person. So you need to figure out what's right for your character to oppose that lie. And then as your character goes through their arc in your story and moves through the acts, you can kind of go back and forth with whether they believe the lie right now, whether they believe the truth right now, and they kind of go back and forth, but the truth ultimately wins out, and that's how you end the story, with them having realized, I am special. And the wound is the thing that happened in the first place that made them believe the lie. And I mentioned earlier that this schema can start with cold and emotionally distant parents or caregivers as a child. So that might be your wound. So it's time for our exercise. Grab a piece of paper, open a Word document, get some Post-it notes, whatever you want to write this down on. Okay, so the very first thing I want you to do is write down your character's relationship with their schema, with their lie. Now, earlier I kind of gave some examples of, like, I'm not special to anyone, or I can't depend on anyone for advice or love or support. So pick one of those, how your character identifies with the emotional deprivation lie, and write that down. Okay, it's down. Great. The second thing I want you to write down are all the things that could reinforce that lie, that prove it to be true. And this could be things that happen to your character, thoughts that they have, things they observe, etc. Write down a list of those, exhaust it, write down as many as you can. Go. Okay, did you write them down? Great. The third thing I want you to write down are all the things that challenge the lie. Same as the reinforcement. So things that other people do, thoughts that your character could have, blah, blah, blah. All the things that challenge the lie and show it for the lie that it really, really is. Write all those down for me. You get that? Awesome. So save it. Save the Word document. Don't throw away those Post-it notes. And when you're writing your story and you're deep into it and you're just stuck and you don't know what's going on and what you're doing, I want you to go back to that list and I want you to examine what you need at this point in the story. Do I need a scene where I reinforce the lie, or do I need a scene where I challenge the lie? And then pick one of those scenes and write it. And you don't have to make it fit into your story. You don't even have to include it. Just write it to kind of shake up your brain and kind of get yourself thinking in different ways. And then maybe that will get you unstuck from that writer's block. And maybe it will turn into a scene that you totally can use. I also use this for when I am coming back through later and cutting scenes. So when we're trimming the fat. And the fat in this case is any scene you have written that does not either reinforce or challenge the lie. Because the lie is your character's arc, right? And we want our arc to be smooth. We don't want gaps in it. And the gaps are the scenes where it doesn't relate to your character's lie at all. So either pick something that reinforces it, pick something that challenges it, or cut it all together. Okay, that is it for emotional deprivation. And we talked about how emotional deprivation is the thought, the lie to yourself that the people who should love me won't love me and won't give me the love, support, or understanding that I need. And we also talked about the way that you can respond to the schema being triggered, which is either as an overcompensator, an avoider, or a surrenderer. We talked about the lie, the want, the truth, and the wound. And then I gave you some tips on how to use schemas to get out of writer's block or come back through and revise later. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you know a writer friend who you think would benefit from this, please share it. I really love sharing things that work for me with other people because it took me a really long time to figure this out. And if I can cut down that learning curve for people, absolutely, I would love to do it. If you have any questions about emotional deprivation or character therapy in general, leave a comment down below and I would love to chat with you about it. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram if any of those work. Everything is linked below, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.